So, as 32 senior Rotax drivers make their way onto the circuit, let's run you through the starting grid for race 5 out of 24 today. It's Heat 1, senior Rotax, groups A versus B. On pole position will be Sean Butcher in the 302, and he will have Hungary's Zsombor Kovács in the 379 alongside. Andrei Petrovic and Lewis Gilbert, that's row 2. Flint Schuring and Elia Galvanin, row 3. Lachlan Robinson and Alexander Abkazava, row 4. Benedek Vida and Patrick Donica round out the top 10. Completing the top 20 is Zabol Slantos, Oscar Pelmele, Zino Kovac, Teddy Clinton, Giuseppe Forenzi, Patrick Slokmelis, Ben De Zabo, Luna Blum, Sasha Clavereccia and Mika Barthelemy. That's the top 20, and completing the 32 strong is Julien Baudet-Kolarov, Noah Hip, Andrea Giudice, Kylian Tarnier, Oscar Christensen, Baz Janssen, Max Stemmerdink, Storm Preur, Timoteusz Kiadz from Poland, Corentin Franchi, Anthony Bilou, and Italy's Riccardo Di Landro. So this time we'll have 10 minutes plus an additional lap on the counter. So it will be down to Sean Butcher and Zsombor Kovács to control the pace on the formation lap. So they've already had the sighting lap. Now comes the real test of anybody, nailing the start perfectly. And that's what you need to do in order to get things right. Top 30 from senior Rotax will automatically qualify for the two 14-minute plus additional lap finals that start at 12:10 tomorrow local time here in Italy. So it is Butcher, Kovac, Petrovic, Gilbert, Schuring, Galvanin, Robinson, Abkazava, Vida, Donica, Lantos and Pelmele. That is your top 10. Right, grab your popcorn, grab a soft drink and sit down and wait to see what happens. They exit out of the final corner. Are we ready? Are we steady? Ladies and gentlemen, senior Rotax is off and away and racing. Butcher goes defensive going into turn 1 for the first time as they hurtle their way through. And you can just see Sean Butcher gets a really good run, keeps ahead of now. That is Andrei Petrovic that rounds out the top 2, having got past Zsombor Kovács in the first initial foray. Lewis Gilbert looking menacing just behind. It's 3 abreast going into T5 for the first time of asking. And now the battle there. Lewis Gilbert trying to get past Zelenko. And there goes, I think that's Elia Galvanin, the 371 from Italy, just up the inside. Flint Schuring, as there is the 307 out of the race. That is Sasha Clavereccia, who started 17th. So that's why the yellow flags were briefly brandished just coming out of turn 5. But Butcher starting to pull away as we go on to lap 2. Sean Butcher leads over half a second ahead of Zsombor Kovács, Petrovic, Gilbert, Galvanin, Schuring, Robinson, Abkazava down to 8th position. Benedek Vida, Patrick Donica rounds out the top 10. As there is Gilbert, and he's ahead of Galvanin. And it looks to be the case. That's a move by Lachlan Robinson up the inside of Flint Schuring. Neatly done by the Emirati. But just behind, they've got Alexander Abkazava trying to get through. And then you've got Benedek Vida from Hungary and Patrick Donica from Poland not too far behind. So it's rather close. Top 10 covered by just over 2.35 seconds last time around. As Elia Galvanin looking to get past Andrei Petrovic, who now has been passed by the dual ride diamond Lewis Gilbert. Lachlan Robinson, Flint Schuring in close proximity and looking to strike whilst the iron is hot. And three drivers in total. So Max Stemmerdink, Baz Janssen and Sasha Clavereccia look to be out of this race. And that's a real shame for all 3 of them. Max Stemmerdink started down in 27th. Baz Janssen started a little bit further up the field, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. But now Robinson found to be sandwiched a little bit. As now Flint Schuring trying to go up the inside of the 326 with Andrei Petrovic just up ahead. Benedek Vida now factors into this as well from KSB. And now Schuring has lost out to both Robinson and Benedek Vida in the 346. So now this releases Robinson, who can go after Andrei Petrovic. Well, I think let's just see what happens here. So at the moment, Butcher leads, but Zsombor Kovács has closed in. Lewis Gilbert has also gotten a little bit quicker as well. He's actually set the fastest lap of the race by 11 thousandths of a second ahead of Zsombor Kovács. So Lewis Gilbert is trying to close in on the Hungarian for second position. We still have 7 minutes plus an additional lap still to go. There's Butcher and there is Kovács. The gap was just over 2 tenths on the completion of lap number 3. However, it's all a case of not if, but when Zsombor Kovács might get the opportunity to get past Sean Butcher. But Sean Butcher, runner-up last season in this championship, is gunning for the title this year, as are multiple other protagonists, including Lachlan Robinson, who was the first UAE licensed driver to qualify for the Grand Finals outside of the UAE itself. But Sean Butcher looking to make some inroads here and try and make his presence known to the rest of the field, saying, well, if you think you're gunning for the title, you're not the only one. But we'll be at the halfway point of this season after this race weekend. But Sean Butcher soaking up the pressure like a sponge. Zsombor Kovács keeping it nice and clean here in second position. Lewis Gilbert and Elia Galvarin have engaged in battle, but Lachlan Robinson has now got past Andrei Petrovic. And there is Benedek Vida from Hungary rounding out the top 7. Flint Schuring, Patrick Donica and Alexander Abkazava round out the top 10 ahead of Zino Kovács. Oscar Pellemele, Julien Bode-Kolarov, Salbog Slantos, Mika Barthélemy, who rounds out the top 15. 5 minutes and 40 still to go. Butcher still leads. Gap now just over 2.5 tenths between him and Kovács. Gilbert being pressurised by Galvarin, but Robinson looks to have been released, courtesy of getting past Andrei Petrovic. And Robinson has just put in the fastest lap of anybody, 50.394 for the Dubai-based driver. And so he has wound up the wick, mechanic by Ashley Whitman this weekend. Those two seem to be getting on very, very well behind the scenes from what I'm hearing. But you can see now this battle on your screen. It's an absolute slobber knocker. You've got the likes of Alexander Abkazava, Flint Schuring in there as well, Benedek Vida. It is all closing up and everyone's trying to go for the scraps on the table and no one's giving an inch nor taking a country mile. There is the 363 of Abkazava being pressurised by Zino Kovács. Oscar Pellemele not too far behind, nor is Julien Bode-Kolarov. And there is the move by Elia Galvarin to get up the inside of Lewis Gilbert. But look at the gap behind them. Lachlan Robinson, last time around, again, is going quicker and quicker as he's got that gap down. And the gap now is just under 1 second between, was 1.1 second between Elia Galvarin and Lachlan Robinson. So still very much the case. Don't count out anybody in this kind of high-pressure cooker situation, because you know for a fact that people will start closing in. 4 minutes and 8 seconds plus an additional lap still to go. Sean Butcher still leading. Galvarin now past Gilbert to get 4th. Lachlan Robinson rounding out the top 5. And his gap now is just under 9.5 tenths of a second back to in front to Lewis Gilbert. So whilst Galvarin and Gilbert are battling, this is giving Robinson the opportunity he needed. Benedek Vida has got past Andrei Petrovic for 6th position. Patrick Donica now ahead of Flint Schuring to round out the top 8 as Alexander Abkazava completes the top 10. And there is the battle between Benedek Vida. Oh, problems for Flint Schuring. Massive loss of drive there for the 316 from JJ Racing. And that has caused him a major, major problem indeed. And that has dropped him well outside of the top 10. So a real shame there for Flint Schuring in the 316. But Butcher still leads ahead of Zsombor Kovács. Elia Galvarin rounds out the top 3. Lewis Gilbert, Lachlan Robinson, Benedek Vida, Andrei Petrovic, Patrick Donica now up into 9th ahead of Zino Kovács. And you've also got the 390, that is Julien Bode-Kolarov, who is rounding out the top 10. We have 2 minutes and 40 seconds plus an additional lap. The lap times are going down. They are increasing the pace as the track continues to evolve here in Adria. But now, look at the gap between the top 4. It's coming down by a considerable margin, and it's now 1.1 seconds. Lachlan Robinson is giving chase, but it might be a bit of a tall order. He started 7th, now up into P5, a very solid result for the 326. It is about gunning for that top 30 and then going for it tomorrow in finals day. So Sean Butcher still leading. Gap now between him and Zsombor Kovács is over 3/10. Elia Galvanin still hanging on to third at the moment. But when will Lewis Gilbert strike and get his opportunity to retake that third place position? Gilbert started 4th, but Robinson is closing up as well. Benedek Vida and Andrej Petrovic are still battling away over 6th and 7th, and they are nigh on line astern. There's less than a cart length between the pair of them going through into the final right-hander. This is where it's all kicking off. Top 3 covered by 9/10. Robinson is closing on Gilbert. But it's about measuring it, going through into the braking zones, and then you can see still Benedek Vida and Andrej Petrovic still battling over 6th position. So no one's giving any quarter, no one's giving an inch, no one's taking a mile. Everyone is battling hard. And there is the likes of Donica. We've had some retirements, unfortunately. Patrick Slok-Melis on lap 5 retired in the 384. But still, these drivers are pushing. And that is the battle for what is effectively 8th, 9th and 10th between Donica, Kovac and Bode Kolarov. We now go on to the penultimate lap. And things have started to slightly stagnate, but in the favour of certain drivers, such as Sean Butcher, who is looking to secure his first victory of the weekend here in Italy. But Zsombor Kovács is not that far adrift at the moment. But we still have a lot of racing to do this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, and here in Adria it is going to be a tall order for those that do their level best to try and get to the top step at the podium come the end of the weekend. Timer has now hit 0. Sean Butcher this time will get the last lap board and will have the signal that he needs to just keep pushing forward, and puts in a 50.620 last time around. The gap between him and Zsombor Kovács closes to about just over 0.37, as Lachlan Robinson had started winding up the wick and did a 50.47 in comparison with Lewis Gilbert's 50.689 on that particular occasion. So Robinson has been closing. The gap has concertinaed a little bit between the top 5 as we are on the final lap here. Lap 13 out of 13, and with the top 5 covered by just under 1.8 seconds. Sean Butcher has done exactly what he needed to do, and he's controlled proceedings from lights out as he looks over his right shoulder. One more right-hander to go for the Aussie based out of London, and it's a victory for Sean Butcher from KR Sport. Zsombor Kovács takes second ahead of Elia Galvanin. Lewis Gilbert and Lachlan Robinson ran out the top 5, who were covered by just over 1.5 seconds. Benedek Vida and Andrej Petrovic round out the top 7. Good run by Zino Kovac, up to 8th ahead of Patrick Donica in terms of the positioning. So up from 8, so up to 8th position. Then we've got Lantos in the 602 rounding out the top 10 ahead of Julien Bode Kolarov. Oscar Pelmele rounds out the top 12 ahead of Noah Hip. So 3 French drivers in the top 13. Teddy Clinton would finish ahead of Luna Blum in the 319 from the Netherlands. Good run from Stormbroer, who started down in 28th and finished in 16th. Andrea Giudice rounds out the top 17 ahead of Francis Mika Barthélemy in 18th position. Then it is the 601 of Benid Sabo that rounds out the top 19 ahead of Alexander Abkazava. Kylian Tarnier, Flint Shearing would round out the top 22. Real shame for Flint Shearing, who was looking good for a top 6 finish at the end of that race. Anthony Bilou, Corentin Franchi, Timoteusz Kiaj from Poland, Ricardo Di Landro, Giuseppe Forenzi and Oscar Christiansen rounded out the 28 that made the full race distance of 13 laps. Unfortunately, we had retirements in the form of Patrick Slok-Melis, Sasha Klaverdecha, Max Stamadink and also Buzz Janssen.